accurate, autonomous, and accelerated operations of our devices and care pathways, enabling clinical decision support, smart image signal synthesis and analysis, quantitative imaging, and augmented workflows, shaping the future of precision health. Current programs include shaping the GE healthcare strategy for multimodal AI and foundation models for healthcare solutions. We welcome Dr. Rakesh Mullick, who will speak on the real world application of emerging technologies in improving healthcare delivery. Dr. Rakesh.
Sairam. Uh, I think nothing can be more real than what we just heard on the stage about bringing technology into the hands of our clinicians. Um, at the forefront, I'd like to first thank Dr. Sundaresh for this opportunity to be here. Uh, I'm blessed to be here at the lotus feet of Bhagwan to be able to talk to all of you. It's my honor to be here, but I do want to mention that I am not a clinician. So any errors or omissions from my part, please excuse them for any misrepresentation there. At the onset, I'd also like to say that I bring to the forum the global industry perspective on some of this. And a large part of that is how we try to translate stuff to scale. Dr. Panchananthan in the morning mentioned very clearly how important it is for the healthcare institutes and the academic research institutes to come together. And I think at that intersection, really, what happens is invention. And true innovation happens when we can bring the third party into is the industry. You heard about all the devices that our clinicians are so proudly using, and it just warms my heart to hear, that we are able to bring some of that technology into the hand of clinicians. But as we bring, industry and innovative companies together with the clinicians, is when we are able to translate some of this in clinical hands. We have heard a lot about AI, and I'll give us some semblance of how that comes together. During my talk, I will talk about some of the emerging technologies that are enhancing healthcare delivery. But given the time constraint, please don't consider this to be all encompassing. There is so much happening in such a fast moving pace of technology that it is hard to even keep track of all of this. Not only communicate it across. So let me first begin with where are those challenges that are faced in healthcare, and I'm here amongst those who practice it, and they can correct me when that is not the case. This is our perspective, and take it with that grain of salt there. So what we are seeing is there is tremendous burden on the healthcare system. Obviously, we are blessed to be part of a center which is adjacent to the Sathya Sai Hospital in Whitefield, and we have gained tremendously from the collaboration and the learnings that happen. But that's one hospital where we can see, and as I see here also, everything happens in a very calm, peaceful manner. That is not the nature of all the hospitals we get to visit across the country, across the world. There is a lot of stress. There is a lot of, unmet needs within the hospital to bring operational efficiency in there, as well as care for the patient. How do we bring that patient care in there? And as you notice, there are many of factors which are adding to that stress today. There is aging population. The population pyramids are transforming across the world and even in India. We are also observing that there is tremendous complexity, and as the deeper understanding of biology happens, of science happens, there is just a plethora of disease types, subtypes. We are seeing epigenetic and genetic factors playing a large part as the population ages on increasing cancer incidence. And most importantly, as has been pointed out, and as Bhagwan mentioned, there's a need to provide care for the inaccessible, make it accessible, make it affordable. So those are the bigger challenges that we are sort of balancing around. But at the same time, we talked and heard so much about data. There is, you know, as certain surveys will put out, 180 zettabytes of data being generated every year. And we are all generating that, right? So this is, you start with what most people will be familiar with, gigabytes today. You go from gigabytes to terabytes to petabytes to zettabytes. So you can imagine the scale of the data and the tsunami of data that's coming in. And interestingly, a third of this data, as per our surveys, is coming from healthcare. There's a lot of data being collected. A lot of you are wearing wearables today, which is collecting a lot of data constantly. Imagine, the 7 billion across doing that. And then there is, the imaging data, the histopathology data, the clinical data, textual data, prescriptions, operational data. The interesting fact here is that this 30% of healthcare of total data is from healthcare, but 97% of it remains unused. There is a lot of data. We just heard from Dr. Kinney about how we want to unlock that data that is in India, right? And a lot of that data, 80% of it, is unstructured. It's not in the format that I think in the morning Dr. Subramaniam showed how he's capturing a lot of that data, where every data element has a label associated to it. There are SNOMED codes that are being used. So it's all very structured. Most of the data is unstructured. So making sense out of that and in the multiple IT systems that are around is a complex task. So this is sort of the current state of affairs. Now, at the same time, we are seeing that clinicians are spending more and more time with EMRs, entry of information into the EMRs, hospital information systems, right? And that is, leading to a fair amount of turnover. Now, this is global numbers. There is a lot of growth in healthcare that we see here as we have more and more enterprise getting into providing healthcare, but that is still leading to a lot of staff turnover. If you look at, let's say, cancer, the pressure is as much, if not much more, in the oncology space as those numbers are growing. There are different types of cancer. There are 1,000 subtypes. There are numerous treatments. The choice of treatment becomes complex. There is a lot of error in the system also where it is recorded. There are also a lot of manual processes. There are, as we age, a lot of cancer patients and survivors, many more than the clinicians that can serve them. And again, this is leading to fair amount of stress in the system, in any care pathway. Now, let's look at what is happening in terms of emerging technologies. Where can emerging technologies come in and play a part in addressing some of these things, right? If we look at the World Economic Forum, this is just published a couple of days back, literally, of what are the top 10 emerging technologies in 2025. And this is across the board, not just healthcare. But if we look at biotechnologies for health, engineering living therapeutics, these are methods to develop new therapies using helpful bacteria, which can internally do curation, internally provide provision therapy. And I'm not a specialist in this area, so I'm just calling out what is happening. A lot of you probably have heard about, the wonder drug in obesity management, in diabetes management, GLP-1s. There are opportunities seen where this drug, this formulation, is aiding Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. Now, there is a lot of research to be done in this space, but what is the magic behind this, right? And of course, autonomous biochemical sensing. How can we, without any, without any invasion into the body, be able to monitor? And monitoring is a big part of the wellness, part of caring for any patient, and being able to monitor all of this. So these are critical technological enhancements that are happening. If you go back slightly in history, 2015 CRISPR has transformed a lot of how we do genetic care management. mRNA vaccines helped us, push across the COVID pandemic. And then of late, AI-led molecular design in terms of drugs plays a big part. If we look at the IT space, or we look at emerging technologies, because we are living in a world where computing is driving a lot of this stuff. This is the 2024 hype cycle from Gartner, which tells you which state is a certain technology in? Is it just starting out? It is an innovation trigger. Is it at a peak of inflated expectations, the euphoria that happens when a certain technology makes certain impact? Then you sort of go through a little low or trough of disillusionment, and then the steady state of how do we bring this into a translation mode and bring it to the plateau of productivity when it's in the hands of our peers, our colleagues in the healthcare system and delivering that. And there are some of these which are moving along in that space. And I've just highlighted some of them which are now relating to a maturing state as we go into 2025. If you look at Gartner's 2025, that was 2024. If you look at Gartner's call out on what are 10 strategic technologies out there, and if you just focus on the AI imperatives, agentic AI, I'll talk a little bit about that. We heard a lot about governance from the panel before, AI governance platforms that are being developed, which aid in that translation of what is true ethics, what is legal mandates as standards are emerging across the world. We have DPDP maturing at our end. The EU AI Act is now an act, it's a law which has to be activated in 2026, and some elements of that are already activated. And then there is the element of disinformation security. All of us have gotten, fake news stuff. Now, we want to make sure that cybersecurity elements are well in place to ensure that any of these complex structures which are running, some of which are called as black boxes, are not intruded by elements which are intending harm in any way. And I read up there, we never want to hurt, right? So do no harm is the operating sense there. So agentic AI is the next phase of what we see in large language models, what you may have heard is, in consumer hands as ChatGPT or Copilots, which are largely static, and we want to make them adaptive. You build a model once, but you can't leave it. These models are updating every quarter, every month, perhaps even every week from different parties that are coming in there. They had been doing, simple tasks, and now how do we orchestrate complex goals? You heard how complex it get, how many devices get involved in provision of any healthcare, right? And they can work not just in simple environments where you're trying to do a travel booking or you're trying to do something which is, largely a simple but laborious task to more complex environments, and let's say in healthcare. Most of these are supervised, and there is a lot of talk today about autonomous systems. Now, we are not talking about, again, eliminating any profession out of here, but adding all the associated support to make the focus come back to the patient. I'll briefly talk about the governance platforms and what are evolving out there, how things happen, and then this information I did mention about how do we do deep fakes, detection, how do we ensure the reputation of institutes, reputation of individuals, patients, privacy, all of that is managed very, very securely. This just came out. This is also within the last month or so, is the hype cycle for artificial intelligence by Gartner in 2025. And there are two elements which I highlight out here: agents, AI agents, and foundation models. And this is a place that we have been doing some work, and I'll share our developments in this space. But let's look at, is the hype really the key? Is there real value in this? I mean, we hear about, good models working and supporting, doing predictive, decision support for our clinicians. And this was a recent talk. There are a couple of books by Dr. Eric Topol. Some of you might have read these. These are focused on what is deep medicine. This is the whole play of AI in medicine. And he recently just released his Super Agers talk. I mean, there's a lot of discussion about, looking at life extension. But if you look at AI specifically, one of the most advanced things that are happening is in drug discovery, some of which I don't do. Computational biology plays a big part in understanding molecular, systems, molecular designs. And one of these discoveries that happened leveraging AI tools, idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis, is in a phase 2 trial. And that's a big step in clinical discovery itself. There's a lot that is happening in operational efficiency. We heard about from Dr. Subramaniam and others about how they are making sure that the Atma app and other IT solutions are provisioning access to data, but much beyond that, helping uh, plan prescriptions, scheduling. It's a big complex task in any healthcare system. Pre-authorization. I understand that the science institutes do not have any transaction happening, but most institutes do. And in that sense, there is provisioners who are the payers who are paying out there, and there is a whole effort that happens in pre-authorization of studies and so forth, and there is AI playing a part in there. On life extension, as Dr. Topol likes to call health span, extending the health span, those who were quite young wanted to be rich. And now when they are rich, they want to be young. So there is a lot of work that's happening in this space on what is the right systemic view, not just at a single organ level, single cell level, but at a system level. How do we understand the interconnectedness? And there is work that is happening, and there is evidence-based science that is being used to understand this complex interoperation. And a lot of that is perhaps beyond human comprehension. Obviously, having the divine support in that is important, and essential, but to make any comprehensive sense out of that is challenging. And we heard a lot about predictive diagnosis. You want to be able to identify what the ailment is, what the pathology is, but then you want to be able to see if a particular treatment is going to translate. Is it going to give the extension of life? Is it going to make quality of life possible? And there's fair bit of work that is happening to be able to assess 5-year survival, disease-free survival, remission-free survival, particularly in cancer. And we also heard from an ophthalmologist, there's a lot that is happening at the retinal side of things. There's a lot that we can read through one of the smallest organs through AI. A couple of recent studies. This is a JAMA study. We heard about transesophageal echo, and also use of POCUS, point of care ultrasound. Now, how do we enable some of that and make it simpler in use? And this is talking about a complete automated system for assessing an echocardiogram and interpreting it with high accuracy, looking at all the measurements that need to be done. Now, this is a laborious task. It takes 20, 25 minutes, and those in the ultrasonography department may, disagree. They could do it faster, but it's a task that takes a fair bit of time. And you want to make sure that in the case, particularly in cardiac care, you want to do this fast. You want to get all your measurements as accurately as possible so that the right decision can be made. Similarly, there's a lot of work that is happening at the cusp of imaging and genomics. So here, a radiogenomic view of assessing the retinal scan itself and being able to then predict or define genetic diagnosis in a large number of common genetic disorders, both of these in very reputed journals recently published. Just to give you a sense of it. There is a lot happening also within our ecosystem. I'm familiar with some of the work that is happening, and I'm sure you're familiar with what's happening in Prashanthi Nilayam, as well as at the Whitefield Hospital, as we do partner on some of those. But these are the sort of news bites that are evolving in terms of how do we address, and it's a common problem, right? There is a doctor shortage that we hear about it. There is also this question of ethical use of AI. So there is a lot of conversation and effort being put across the board on trying to enable and facilitate this piece. On the ethics side of it, on the governance side of it, these are some of the AI principles that we try to abide by. We look at all of these 7 aspects as we build tools. We have to go through very stringent regulatory approvals, internal approvals for any AI solution to be put out there. We heard again in the morning about 1,000 of these being approved by the FDA. That's the main body which approves whether an AI solution can be used. And these need to be followed, and there needs to be a fallback. And there is obviously liability challenges and others, but more importantly, having an explainability and understanding of it, that you have an interpretable AI. You are making sure that nobody can, break the privacy elements. As there is bias in the data. You want to make sure you do no harm, ensure safety, and make sure that they are reliable over time. Most of these systems can build a degree of drift. Data changes, patient populations change, hospital systems change, operators change. All of these can lead to different type of data coming in and the AI performing differently. And you want to make sure that you have monitoring systems, as you have within a vehicle. When you are driving, you have all kind of sensors to know when things are going wrong. There's tire pressure is low or you're coming very close to the curb. Similarly, in AI, you want to ensure that there is that degree of monitoring, and of course ensuring security and resilient to any dropouts that may happen. This I did mention in the past. The EU Act is now a law, and there are various checks and balances that are coming through different articles in the EU Act, which have to be implemented to ensure the safe as well as reliable use of AI. And these are, falling under specific deadlines that we have to now adhere to as our products come out. So for a lot of people, AI sort of looks like this. You have a whole bunch of data, you build a model, and then suddenly you generate a lot of value, operational value, ease of operation, and so forth. But the real world looks slightly different, particularly AI in healthcare, where you first have to, data is not just available, as was pointed out by one of the panelists. You need to identify data, you need to understand, do you have the entire coverage of the population that you want to serve in that? The diversity of the data has to be ensured. You heard about that 4-year-old child from Bangladesh. Now, if that comes into an AI system, things can be off. So you need to put in the checks and balances for assuring that you're not working at the edges of where and what is the operating ranges on it. Then that data has to be enriched, amplified, privacy in all the GDPR, all the HIPAA, all the DPDP management has to happen. And then you get into the development of the model itself. Once you are assured, and this is what we do a lot, after we develop the model, we need to do a ton of clinical evaluation of that data. Once we are assured, we then have to go through the regulatory approval and then see how that can go into systems, integrated into hardware, integrated into workflows within the hospital system, and monitored. The post deployment is a very important part of it. So these are all sort of hinting to the AI, the perception and the reality. Today, there are ample number of solutions, AI solutions, which are available commercially. But that's where the decision in a department becomes very complex. Which AI do I use? There are probably 12 or 15, radiology solutions just for X-ray, chest X-ray. Which one should you use? So this is where there are solutions which are coming in to evaluate different options. So you can get like an app store, you do a comparison on your own data, see how effective it is on your own data, and then make an informed choice as to which AI solution works best for you. Moving on, these are traditional AI models, which meant you had a lot of data, you had annotated data, and from that, you got into a particular application or solution that works. As of late, we are now looking at foundation models. What are foundation models? These are models which help you to transform the pace at which you can create AI models. In 2000s, you had machine learning. A lot of this was limited by manual feature engineering. You wanted to, build some models, so you had to measure something, and then based on those measurements, you came up with an inference on what that is. In 2010s or about decade and a half ago, deep learning came in. These are neural networks where you gave data with annotations, and that helped you build up the complex nonlinear systems, which then can do the inferencing. But that one was done one application at a time. In foundation models, you don't have annotated data. You're doing self-supervised learning. You're doing contrastive learning. The idea being that you enable a lot of data out there, provision that, not necessarily annotated, and not just a single modality, a single type of data, but a multimodal data, imaging, text, video, genomics, you name it. Um, and the system and this model is built and then later tuned for specific application. And this helps you accelerate the whole process. So in the past, you had limited domain focus. It was single modality, fairly specialized for the kind of model that you wanted to build. As ChatGPT and these large language models have shown, transformer complex neural networks have shown that you can now ask any question. You can send in an image, get interpretation on it, have a poem be created, do travel planning. So what we are seeking is to build that sort of a foundation model, which can speak the language of medicine, which understands that, which means we need to ensure that the right data is used to generate the outcomes that we desire. So here we use unlabeled data, build the AI model, and then be able to then fine tune that model. So the base model, the foundation model remains standard, fixed, and then the rest are trained by giving small samples of data, not very large samples of annotated data. That's the concept behind the foundation model. And at this point, we are trying to build ultrasounds, foundation models, a full body X-ray foundation model, and an MR multimodal model to be able to then use it in all the applications that they may require. What an ultrasound device may require, maybe in cardiovascular ultrasound, in view assessment, or it may be in fetal biometry that may be needed. In case of the X-ray foundation model, we may be doing X-ray fracture detection or pneumoconiosis detection or pneumothorax detection, nodule detection. So those will be the specialized applications, but all built from one common foundation model. Now that is getting transformed into a multimodal state, and multimodal can mean a lot of things. It could mean start with monomodal, so you have just images or non-image data, but then you could have image and non-image data. You could have unimodality, but you may have it with and without contrast. You could have image and image as a multimodal, or you could have mixed dimensional 2D data with 3D data, or as universal as it could be images with text, which are multidimensional and so forth. So dealing with that becomes another complex task in it, but they are proving to be beneficial at this point. These are two recent Nature papers which talk about one which is in the dermatology space, in clinical dermatology, which shows it's coming to a point through a significant assessment that the accuracy, diagnostic accuracy, is performing ahead of what the clinicians are able to. And these are all kind of controlled studies. And you're able to do differential diagnosis in 128 skin conditions. Likewise, in the ultrasound space, folks are building these models which are able to, again, it is limited to the ultrasound domain. But then when we look at it in the cardiology space, models like EchoNet and others are beaten by the fine-tuned segmentation models coming from the foundation concept. So there is a fair bit of improvement that we are seeing in terms of the accuracy, if you may, of these. And there is also systemic reviews that you hear about what foundation models can achieve today and how that is happening. It's just a good read for those who may be interested in it. The other one that is agentic AI. The idea here is you want to adapt and simplify elements of complex structures that are and workflows that are happening in a particular hospital. How we got here, of course, in the last 10 years, there has been a generational change. In the past, we were building special purpose AI models, right? The whole concept there was, what is sensitivity, what is specificity, what is the area under the curve, how well does it work? That was the doubt we had in our minds. Today, we are at a stage where we want to see how can I use it for this? These generational models, the generative AI is opening and unlocking spaces which now have to be regulated. It has to be managed and brought into the clinic in unique ways. But the question here is, how do we unlock more intelligence out of this? And in that space, the thought process is to go from reactive to proactive care, where you're using agentic systems, where you are able to track disease and recommend treatment plans. Now, these are not to make the decision, but to make sure that they are adhering to guidelines, the patient history, and incorporating all of that data. I'll skip over this, but it becomes very, very relevant in oncology, where there are so many data elements that are coming in, and there are so many more decisions that have to be made at every point. Do you need to pivot a treatment? Do you need to increase the radiation dose? Do you need to do a combination therapy? Do you need to get to immunotherapy? There are just a plethora of these that are emerging out there. So we are working on something we call as Health Companion, where these agents are specialized in particular space in field and are then coordinated through an orchestrator, if you may, a coordinating agent, which knows for this piece of information, which agent do I need to leverage. And that specialized agent is then sought out. Just to give you a sense, I'll just take a couple more minutes just to give you an example of it. Let's say you are in a biochemical agent and you want to know certain things about the PSA level in a patient with prostate cancer. You're able to get that detail from the agent, from all the data that has been acquired. What is this enabling? This is enabling many, many new applications. How do you template the report generation itself, the classification, be able to do grounding? You give an image and you point to where is a particular organ or where is the pathology, and you're navigating to that part. Automation of workflow itself. We can step through this. These are just examples of some of these. But how do we bring it into the patient journey itself? In various care pathways, in oncology, in neurology, in cardiology. So we are bringing foundation models together with AI agents to be able to play a part in each of these care pathways. To give you just a couple of quick examples, the whole idea here is that you want to provide precision care because patients are all different, right? They're coming with different genomics, they're coming from different geographies, they are coming with different backgrounds, lifestyles, and the expectation is to move away from prescriptive to predictive in some sense, and bring that element of what I see across here of the human touch. So the idea is to shift that from being able to prospect to reality. That's some of what we get involved in, from preventive to predictive, and also to make it as personalized as possible. So the thought process is, how do we make and unleash the value in this data to be able to provide precision AI? In that sense, we use a lot of this data that now is hosted digitally using systems that we are now pursuing, something called Care Intellect, where all of this information is available in one piece. So when I saw Dr. Subramaniam's slides, there were tons of databases, there's tons of slides. We want to bring that and make it easier. So you can see a timeline view up here of the patient, of all the events that have happened, and then be able to drill down and get any specific insights about that. And also use that for clinical studies, for clinical trials, which is a large untapped area where just finding the best match of patient and the ongoing trial is very complex. And we also do this at the enterprise level. So what I mean by that is we try to bring AI into the device, in the care journey, as I showed, and also at the enterprise level, meaning at the operations level. And I will conclude here by saying that, look, we're looking at various ways to shape these command centers, which are trying to address many painful points in just patient management, in ensuring resources and both human equipment are available at the right time when you need it for the patient. The OTs are available. The forecasting that you need to do of where pressure is building into the system. When is patient discharge happening? It takes almost 6 hours to get the patient, insurance payments done and out of the hospital. It's a long process in most. So that's sort of the thought process at the enterprise level. So with that, what I would like to say is that healthcare is facing unprecedented burdens right now. There is convergence of AI and cloud technology, the digital transformation that is happening, which is creating enormous opportunities for us to do better patient-centric care. And these digital technologies are able to define what is possible and what is, uh, uh, you know, pushing the limits of how we can provide limitless care. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Mullick, for illuminating the path where innovation meets intention. GE Healthcare is an industry leader in IT and medical technology, and to be able to directly listen from a leader of such an eminence heading the AI space is really exciting. Thank you for taking out time and traveling to physically to Puttaparthi and participating in this conference. We hope to strengthen our collaboration for enhancing the use of technology to further Bhagwan's ideal healthcare mission. And just for the clarity of everyone here, in virtual reality, yes, AI is the master. But we all know in